Well, welcome back, boys, for True Footy Podcast 22. We've got Joycey back from Bunbury after a brief hiatus from the podcast.
Yeah.
We got me back from Melbourne, obviously seeing the mighty Eagles win the flag, and we see Busher come out of prison. That was a little short stint you did there just over the weekend, but it's good to see you.
Yeah, I figured I'd like to go to prison so I didn't have to watch WA TV for the week.
True.
I got myself locked up to have my TV privileges revoked.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, but do you think the media coverage in WA has been really bad since the Eagles won the premiership?
I haven't watched it that much, to be entirely honest, so I can't really provide an opinion. From what I've seen, it hasn't been too bad. But
Yeah, no, I think it's been okay, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. I've been watching replays of the grand final over and over again to the point where, I'm definitely not sick of it. But yeah, so I'd imagine you guys probably aren't doing that. Joycey did come over last night, and I did make him watch the game with me.
Poor Joycey.
Over a few beers, but yeah, good times. But yeah, what an amazing trip it was. It's a bit of a shame we couldn't get a podcast up in the last week, but I've still been sort of recovering from a big night in Melbourne on Saturday night, as you can imagine.
Absolutely.
Tell us what it was like when the final siren went. What did you feel? What was going through your head?
I literally couldn't even speak. I just burst into tears. It was hilarious. Especially when that Shiel kicked that goal. Obviously the in the pocket there. I just lost it. I think even my dad was like, "What the hell are you going on about, mate? Just settle down." No, it was a very special moment and just surreal, absolutely surreal.
Oh, that's great.
And it was amazing that Louis got there. Louis, the fourth and almost forgotten man of the True Footy podcast. He's been in Europe for the last, how many months has it been? Like 4 months plus?
Something like that.
He's a well-travelled man.
He went away for the Soccer World Cup and just hasn't come back, and now he's in America. But he did make it to Melbourne and bravely he flew from Scotland on Tuesday, got to Melbourne on Thursday morning rather, and didn't have a grand final ticket, and literally entered a competition on Friday afternoon and won free Category 2 tickets to the grand final.
Just crazy. That's so awesome. Hey.
His reaction was the funniest part. I met up with him straight after we had a few beers, just as he won the tickets. He wasn't even that happy. He was just like, "This is bullshit. Like, I go through my life not even trying that hard, and these amazing things happen."
It was awesome that you both got to go see your team win the premiership. It was a very good game. Great game from both teams. Collingwood, they were up for pretty much the whole game. Kind of felt like Eagles I felt like Eagles were better for longer, but it's just when Collingwood were dominant, they were so dominant, they were able to get a good lead up. What do you think about the game?
It was a cracker game to watch, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It was real up, down. Best game of the finals by a mile.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you feel when the siren went?
Oh,
as a Dockers man?
I wasn't too happy considering I'd cashed in my Eagles bet. Because I thought Collingwood had it about halfway through the fourth when they kicked those first couple of goals, so I cashed in on the Eagles because I had a bet on both.
Yeah.
So I thought I could make a bit of extra profit by cashing in on the Eagles for a bit of value while I still could and win on the Collingwood bet, but then Eagles had to go and ruin that.
I do remember after I think De Goey kicked the second goal in the fourth quarter, I remember you messaging the group chat saying, it's all over, boys.
I didn't go that far. I said it's going to be very tough from here.
Okay.
There's a slight difference.
The Eagles definitely did make it tough with a few misses before Shade finally nailed the hardest of the attempts to get ahead, I'd say.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. How brilliant was Jordan De Goey? It was really evident to me at the ground. I know that technically you'd probably say Langdon and Adams were probably the Collingwood's best two, but just in terms of game-breaking ability, the 3 goals De Goey scored were unbelievable goals in big grand final moments. I can definitely see him being a future Dustin Martin Brownlow medal winner.
He's such an X-factor player. He's a big player, and he wins games. You can tell he's a game winner. So Collingwood would be stoked to have him.
He's pretty young. I mean, I think 22?
Yeah.
I think in De Goey, Stevenson, Hoskin, Elliott, Myercheck, they've got like super, super good forward line there.
Even Cox.
Yeah, Mason Cox. He's played well throughout the final series. He cops a lot of stick, and he did nothing in the first half. But to be fair to him, he had a really big second half. In that early in the fourth quarter, he was dominating.
He was.
So it's good to see him play well.
Even Chris Mayne had like 15 tackles or something.
And he had
ludicrous.
Chris Mayne, he had 15 tackles and 100% disposal efficiency, the only player on the ground to do that. I mean, it's just good to have such a good game and a lot of players play so well. What I'd like to do, boys, I want to go through and you to give your top 3 players from both teams. Doesn't have to be in order. So who wants to start first? I'll start with you, Jesse.
Okay.
So your top 3 Eagles players.
On the day.
Shiel
was my best on ground.
Yeah.
You made the good point. He had a few crucial holding the balls played against him in the last 5 minutes, and which kind of diminished the performance a tiny bit. But I would still say for overall impact, he's the number one. Domsheed got to be second with 32 possessions in that goal.
Yeah.
And I'd say McGovern, number 3, for his pure. Okay. He took a lot of desperate marks, and played with internal bleeding. So
okay.
Yeah, and Collingwood as well.
Yeah, Collingwood.
Adams was best on ground for them. Langdon.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Dugowie, number 3. He kicked 3 goals, only had 13 possessions, but as I said, those 3 goals were pretty huge. So.
Yeah. Okay. Busher?
I was very similar. Well, the Eagles, I was virtually the same.
Okay.
I'd probably say Sheed over Shuey for me, though, personally.
So Sheed, Shuey, McGovern?
Yeah.
Collingwood, I'd say Langdon,
Chris Mayne. I really liked his effort, even though it was like an under-the-radar type thing. It was a gritty, good performance. I'm a bit biased on that one, I will admit, but who else do I like? Adams was good, but he was a little inefficient. But yeah, you'd probably have to put him in there as well, realistically. So I'm going to, go pretty much the same.
Yeah, okay.
Shuey had statistically the best final of anyone in the last 10 years, which is pretty impressive. That's why I think he has
his
it
first half, especially, was very, very, very good.
19 contested possessions, and
he had a great game.
But what about yourself? The 3 and 3
for Collingwood, I think it's Tom Langdon did have a very good game. I'm going to go Jordan Dugowie.
Yep.
As well, and Taylor Adams. I don't think you can look past those 3. For West Coast, I say Dom Sheed number 1.
Yeah.
I think when Shuey was good, he was better, but I feel like Dom Sheed was just good for the whole game.
Didn't make any mistakes.
Super consistent, especially when no one else was really playing well. And he kicked arguably the best kick in AFL history.
It's the latest winning goal in a grand final in 71 years.
Yeah, so I'll give him the top votes for the Eagles. You got to go Shuey number 2, and number 3 I'll go. It's a tough one.
There was a bit of a gap statistically.
I thought Shannon Hearn had a super game.
He definitely deserves an honourable
mention. He
was
so good in that first quarter at just really slowing. He's the master of slowing down the play, just tumbling the ball over the boundary line. I think he single-handedly saved the Eagles on maybe 3 or 4 separate occasions. I also think Barras had a super game. So one of those 2, I'll give it to Shannon Hearn. Yeah, I think he had a super game. Yep.
Yeah, nice one. Cool. Well, I got to say, as well as a finishing note on the grand final, is that in my time in Melbourne, I have to give a massive amount of credit to Collingwood supporters generally, and Bucks and Eddie in particular as well, for just being absolutely brilliant. The Collingwood fans everywhere, because we went out, as you can imagine, in Melbourne on the Saturday night after the game, and tons of people wearing Collingwood gear.
Yeah.
Me and Lou were walking around in our Eagles scarves and stuff, and people were hugging us and saying, "Well done, you deserve it," and stuff like that. Yeah. And not playing up to the Collingwood stereotype at all, the Collingwood fan stereotype. And Bucks, the way at the start of the game, showed a lot of class. Getting around the lady who made the banner, or the people that made the banner that fell down.
Yeah.
Gave Alex Woodward a big hug. The runner who got involved in that. I think that said a lot about his character. And Eddie Maguire was all praise for the Eagles at the end of the game, which I did not expect.
In the rooms chatting to Hearn, I believe, after the game, he was having a real...
I
did not expect it.
After the Eagles game in Perth, I actually felt a little bit sorry for Eddie, because I feel like everyone just rags on him big time, and he's not that much of a...
Dog.
He's all right.
Yeah, he's a hard one to pick. I sort of think he's more of a guy that just really likes his footy, but's a bit one-eyed towards his own team, maybe. But who isn't to a certain extent.
Yeah. And I mean,
I'm guilty as shit of it.
I
Yes,
don't
you
really
are.
like to. I don't really like people to revel in someone being like disappointed that
Yeah.
their team's lost. Like,
I agree with that.
so I mean, but yeah, no, they were all good sports. And Collingwood, I mean, we all definitely ragged on Collingwood at the start of the year, and they proved us wrong big time, and Bucks proved us wrong. So well done. And I think they're going to be a good team for a little while now, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I
Yeah,
saw
back again next
something
year.
comparing them to Hawthorn, where Hawthorn copped something similar, then had their free pay.
Okay.
Or
Oh,
something
yeah,
weird. I
yeah.
forget the exact details of the comparison.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. That just said the last
It's one of those
like,
sketchy, like, coincidence comparison.
I think it just said Hawthorn lost a close grand final in 12 and then won the next three. So
Yeah, it was like one of those coincidences. It's not like a
yeah,
statistical like
Yeah,
fact.
yeah.
It was like one of those coincidence statistics that people
yeah.
enjoy.
Like, could you say it's a coincidence?
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like
Coincidency.
it's not like a thing that's actually going to affect. It's just like one of those nice, like,
Yeah.
patterny.
Yeah.
Coincidency.
Something
You know.
cool did happen in Melbourne. I think I told you boys at the time. Someone at the grand final parade, as I was standing at Flinders Street Station, came up to me and said, "Hey, I like watching your podcast," which was unbelievable. And because I was in a bit of a daze, I couldn't believe someone actually recognised me. I didn't get his name, but I'd like to give him a little shout out if he's watching this one. Thanks, mate. That absolutely made
I
my
was
day.
chuffed when you told me that. I'm not going to lie. I was
Yeah.
pretty chuffed.
Because you see the numbers that you see that we get views on these podcasts, but it became very real when you meet someone that's actually watched it, and you're like, wow, these
Yeah.
aren't, you know.
But
That's,
the other side of the country, no less.
yep. So
It's not just our friends getting around.
yeah,
for our
yeah,
benefit.
pretty much. I think he was an Eagles man. He probably flew
Yeah.
over, I presume. But yeah, good on him. Good on you, mate. All right, boys. Anything else we want to add on the grand final, or?
Any honourable mentions other than the best three? Like any other players that you felt deserve an honourable mention, even if they might not have been your best three?
Yeah, I'm going to
Something.
give a shout out to Vardy.
Yeah, I was
think
thinking Vardy as well when I floated that question.
He played a really, really good game. Schofield as well
Yeah, Schofield for
played a
West
good game. Chris Mayne, I think you mentioned
Yeah.
him, gets a lot of crap, but he played a good game.
And for the Pies, I think one player I've been pretty impressed with is Myercheck. Gets a lot. I
Yeah,
think
he's
for the
good.
guy that started the year like out of in the VFL, I think, and wasn't a high draft pick. I think he's
Didn't
really,
he play amateurs? And what didn't he
I
go
don't know
from amateurs or
exactly his
something?
story. I know that he.
Something like that. I
Yeah,
don't know
he
the
came
exact-
from sort of like below,
Yeah.
but he's kind of found a niche in that forward line, and he's annoyingly good. I mean, he's played,
Yeah.
kicked some good goals against West Coast in the finals this year. So
Even in the last game of the season, he tore Alex Pearce to shreds when they played Freo here before the qualifying final against you guys. He
Yeah.
tore Pearce to shreds.
He's very athletic, full forward. He's not really a traditional big man.
Yeah.
He's a lot quicker and good ground player than. So I think that's definitely one area Collingwood are really doing well in. Their transition is so quick. Like, and this happened a lot in the grand final. They'd receive the ball at half back, and they'd have a flood of numbers going forward, and the Eagles couldn't keep up with them. I don't know if you noticed that at the game, but
more so in hindsight,
transition-wise, they're super good.
it's the best way to play the Eagles. The Eagles obviously like to set up defensively and force the long bomb because we have so
Yeah.
many intercept players. But
Yeah.
if you beat us with a quick transition, Essendon did it really well against us mid-year. That's the way to beat us. And Collingwood did have a lot of like quick play goals, like you say. So
Yeah. Particularly early.
yep,
Yeah.
that's it.
With the mention of Vardy, we could even transition to some news that came out just before we filmed the podcast. Scotty Lysette,
Yep.
free agency, trades, all that.
Well, exactly right. So footy does move quickly, doesn't it? Only a couple of days after the grand final, we're already straight into all the hot news about who's
Yeah.
going where. And it seems like this year it's even bigger than any other trade period we've seen, at least rumour-wise.
Especially WA wise, both the WA clubs are just
In the thick of
up
it.
to it. Yeah.
I swear there's more fake news now than ever.
Oh yeah, there is, but I mean, there's more publicity than ever.
There's a
isn't
lot
there?
of Instagram pages that pop up with the amateurs, just like us, really, that have popped up with their own AFL trade news pages that are
Yeah.
also just talk shit, and
Yeah.
that's not helping.
Yeah.
Oh well, if someone's doing it as a hobby because they generally enjoy it, then
Nah,
yeah, no.
only we can do it. No, but at least we try and add value. I swear there's some pages that literally just do it and like half lie, you know what I mean? But
So back to the Lysett deal. How do you feel about Lysett leaving the Eagles? Are you disappointed? Are you happy? Does it depend what you get out of it?
I've kind of made my peace with it. It feels like it's been a long time coming, so I'm not too fussed about him leaving. It sounds like if we don't match, we'll get pick 22, like band 2 compensation, which is probably about all we get in a trade.
That's pretty good for Lysett personally. I think 22 is probably about right anyway.
Yeah.
So,
what about from a Port perspective? What do you guys think? How do you like the proposed deal is what 5 years, 3 million, so 600 a year.
I don't really see it personally with Paddy Ryder. I think Westhoff is a really good like pinch hitting / forward ruck. I don't really see why they're so desperate. I guess Ryder's pretty old and injury prone. So I guess that's there, but I don't personally think rate Lysett as much as what Port are giving him a 5-year deal.
He's kind of like a negating ruckman. He and Vardy were really good at double teaming, so to speak. The opposition ruckman, obviously Gawn and Grundy with it. West Coast only played Collingwood and Melbourne in the finals, didn't they? So yeah, each final game they came up against a premier ruckman, and all 3 times they got the better of them just by using like their physicality and stuff. He's not going to beat them in the tap, but it seems like they were pretty well held out of the game. Yeah,
it's a good combination, Vardy and Lysett, because Vardy's athletic enough to run with these sort of guys and fly with them, and then Lysett's a big, rougher guy that can body with them and. So it's a good tandem.
I thought Grundy still played an okay game, actually. I still think he got the better, but he definitely was negated. He wasn't dominant.
I was thinking more the first final and the prelim as well. I don't really remember. To be honest, my analysis of the grand final was a bit skewed because of how emotional the day was. It kind of went over in a flash.
I think it's the De Goey goal, or maybe it's the first goal in the fourth quarter. Grundy does like one of the best taps I've ever seen.
Was it that real?
That was so good.
Yeah.
But, no, well done to Lysett and Vardy, but I don't think the Eagles will be too worried about potentially losing him.
It's perspective, isn't it? Because they're going to lose Gaff probably, and that's Lysett seems like nothing compared to losing Gaff. But we will get to that a little bit. There have been a couple other free agency moves that are official. Luke Dowhouse has moved to the Cats. I think that one was
good
probably
move for me.
Worst kept secret. Yep.
I think that's a really good move. I really rate Dowhouse personally, and I think maybe Geelong lacked a little bit of that forward pressure sort of player this year.
I agree.
And I think he's a really good fit, so that's a great pickup for them.
Definitely, I'd give you that for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially for the money, they're only paying him $400,000-500 grand a year or something. Which in the scheme of some of these deals is not.
I'm surprised he couldn't fetch more than that personally. I mean, apparently he's from down there though. So that's going to help Geelong as well.
Yeah, true. The other free agency move that has been completed, by the time we get this out, there'll probably be more. But Reece Conker has obviously joined your boys, Fremantle, on a 3-year deal. How do you guys feel about that, especially in light of Neale possibly moving? Do you think you guys pretty happy with that move?
Considering we didn't have to give up anything to get him, and we're not paying him exorbitant amounts of money, it's worth having on a list.
Do you know the contract amount? Is that out?
I think it's about $400 a year. I heard on Trade Radio.
I think it's just over 400 on a 3-year deal.
Yeah, it's not as much as it used to be.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a super exciting move, is it? But if you can make the Richmond 22. And like Busher said, we don't have to give anything for him. Then I'm willing to take a punt on him. I just hope the club's done the due diligence because he's had a lot of injuries. So I hope, and I'm sure they've given him a pretty good medical. And not the type of medical you've been getting, but I'll take him on $400K a year.
Yeah, I think it's a good move in, like, as I said, losing Neale, even if Conker doesn't play as a pure mid. You've got a lot of young guys you're going to try and rotate through there. I wonder, in light of Neale moving, do you think, we talk about it a lot, especially you, Bush, Blakely potentially becoming a midfielder. Do you think, somebody's got to step up to take more midfield minutes if Neale goes, right?
Yeah, I'd like it to be Blakely, but there's also the possibility they just give Brayshaw, Chera, throw them in the deep end, which I also wouldn't complain about.
I feel like Brayshaw pretty much playing 100% as a mid anyway. I think it's a pretty obvious fit that Blakely will go straight in there.
Yep. I think it's a good move too. I think he's a natural inside mid. So yeah. Well, in other Fremantle related news, you did make mention of the fact that WA is very involved with this off-season, and that is partly because Jesse Hogan appears like he might be heading to Fremantle, and obviously Lachie Neale might be heading in a different direction to Brisbane. So I guess we'll start with Lachie Neale. What do you think is the chances, because he's a contracted player, that he will go to Brisbane this off-season?
I think it's probably like an 80-20.
That he will go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Freo... I honestly think Freo, if the offer didn't come from Brisbane that was good enough, I think Freo could potentially force him to stay.
Yeah.
But I think the offer will come that's
Yeah.
good enough, and I think he will be a Brisbane player next year.
So what do you think is a good offer, and what do you think Fremantle should accept in terms of a trade from Brisbane?
I think, pick 4 and maybe something else a little bit lower. If I was Freo, I'd be driving hard for a first rounder this year and next year. I'm not sure if Brisbane would go for that. But that's like a good starting point for Fremantle, in Fremantle's perspective. And then, I think 4 and 22 is a pretty good deal personally for
The
Neale.
Pies?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Pick 4 and pick 22. I agree with what you're saying there. I think that's a pretty good offer. What do you think, Bush?
I'd like a little more myself.
Ooh.
More than 4 and 22?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've really liked that Port hypothetical trade that I've seen
Yeah.
floating around where we send Neale to Brizzy send Port Adelaide, and then Port Adelaide send 10 and 11. Well, it's 10, 11 after the Lynch compo, 9, 10, whatever you want to call it, back to Freo.
Yep, so for basically Port go from having 10 and 11, they upgrade to pick 4. Is that right?
Yeah, effectively, yeah.
Yeah. That would be great for Freo. I don't know if that's great for Port.
You could argue it is, though, because there's a lot of top-end South Australian
Yeah.
talent this year's drafted. Give them a good chance at it.
At Rankin or
Rank.
someone
It
like
is
that.
still risky though. Like if it was West Coast or if I was supporting Port, I'd probably be inclined to take the 2 picks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It depends
does
how
depend.
desperate Port
It does
are to
depend. I think it's always a little bit risky if you're trading specifically for players in the draft. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they're 18-year-olds. They might be a bust. But who
there's,
knows?
There's so many hypotheticals that could happen. I think sometimes I think I was saying this to you earlier. If you can get a player, sometimes you should just pay the price, whatever it is. I don't think Brisbane can afford to wait, because if Lachie Neale's out of contract at the end of the year, then I'd say there's no doubt Hawthorn, Geelong will just come in and try and swoop him, and there'd be a good chance they'd be able to get him instead of Brisbane. So I think if Brisbane can get Neale now, they should. And I think if Fremantle can get Hogan now, they should, even if they have to pay slightly overs.
Yeah. Yeah, fair call.
With Hogan, I am prepared to pay overs, realistically.
What?
Which is why
Be
I'm sort
specific.
of feeling like I want at Brisbane to pay overs for Neale, considering I'm so prepared to pay overs for Hogan. And I'd say in terms of talent, they're pretty comparable.
It'd be a bit of a blow if you lost Neale and didn't get Hogan this offseason,
It'd
would
be
it?
very
I'd be
big.
shattered.
Yeah. You'd probably end up with some good top 10 picks at Fremantle, but
Can't really afford to... Ross would be absolutely stuffed because he can't afford to wait 4 years for a draft pick to develop.
yeah.
So he'd be gone.
It's time to top up the rebuild with some ready-made talent,
I'd
isn't it?
really feel for the senior guys like Fife and Stephen Hill, because they've chosen to stand by the club with good offers from other clubs, with all the other senior players leaving.
True.
And I'd feel like, I don't know. I just feel like if Freo can get Hogan, we should do whatever we have to do to get him.
I'd consider Hogan an upgrade on Neale for Fremantle, because we need that. We need something in that
I
forward
think
line.
Neale's the better player, but structurally it would help
Exactly,
him more.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. Neale is the better player, but for what Fremantle specifically need,
Yep.
Hogan is like...
He's a bit of a marquee kind of player as well. He's a bit of that extra value, isn't there? Because he's obviously born and bred West Australian, loves the club clearly, not even entertaining a move to West Coast. He's all about Fremantle. And you guys haven't really had a key forward
Since Pav.
with any kind of profile since Pav, really. You had Mondra in the 90s, and other than that, I think the next best forward might be Longmuir.
Yeah.
But this guy's like
So it's
some real
probably
marketability.
Walters.
Yeah, I was
Or you
thinking
meant
key
key
forwards,
forward?
but
Yeah.
obviously Walters is a gun. Yeah.
Because in terms of small forwards, we've had a few. We've had like Jeffy Farmer.
Yeah.
I still don't think it's out of the question that Freo try and flip another draft pick for a mature midfielder from another club, as well as getting Hogan as a straight replacement for Neale too.
Okay. Do you have anyone in mind, or
Not really.
I guess it's Tim Kelly's one obvious one.
Yeah, although he seems to have his heart set on West Coast, so I just don't think that one would happen.
If Eagles couldn't make Geelong an offer that they'd accept, but Freo hypothetically could, I think we could convince him to stay, but again,
to come to Freo?
If he wanted to come home this year and Eagles just couldn't get the deal done, but Freo slipped in and could get a deal done, he'd be like, yeah, it gets me home. And I think we could keep him at that point. But
we do have slightly more currency in terms of picks,
sure.
and probably we got a slightly better young Victorian talent to maybe offer if we were to go down that road, which I don't really want to. But yeah, I think if Kelly can get a spot in the Eagles midfield and they're the premiership side, it's not really a hard decision to choose between the two clubs at the moment.
Yeah, I think, like Hogan for Fremantle, or Kelly is a massive West Coast fan growing up. The language from his manager is that they are happy to stay another year, but I don't know how true that is. I think they're just being respectful.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure.
Because apparently there's a quote from Tim saying if he could uproot Geelong Football Club and bring in the Perth, he'd be ecstatic. But
that's true. Yeah, I did hear that. I heard his manager say that on the radio, actually. Yeah, that for sure.
There is talk of Rory Lobb as well coming to one of the WA clubs. I think he has been slightly more strongly linked with West Coast from what I've read. But, from what you hear, both clubs are still in the race. What do you think Rory Lobb is worth?
That's a really hard one. He's another contracted player, so obviously his value is a bit higher. I guess another factor mitigating that would be that GWS clearly have salary cap issues. In fact, it's getting a little bit desperate over there, it seems. I think from a West Coast perspective, I'd probably only want to flip the Lyset compo, which I said
22?
was early in the 20s. Let's call it 22 or whatever it is,
I think that's pretty fair for Lobb, personally.
I'd agree with that.
But obviously GWS are in the ball's in their court. They could turn that down very easily if they wanted to.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good segue into talking a little bit about GWS because we've got they seem to have all these players that are linked with a move every year, and because they're not struggling on field, unlike Gold Coast. People aren't really looking at it as a crisis, but I'm actually starting to worry that they could end up like the Suns. Maybe not as drastically bad, but. I mean, think about how many players they're linked to leaving. Lobb's going to leave, salary cap. Shiel seems like he's got one leg out the door, whether it's this year or next. Will Setterfield, did he request a trade or is that...
I'm not sure Setterfield, but it sounds like he's likely gone.
Yep. Josh Kelly has out of contract next year.
Yeah.
People believe that he's pretty much got a verbal agreement with North Melbourne to leave. And then, people are going to be banging down the door for Stephen Cornelio next year. I've heard Hawthorn interested, West Coast. I'm sure Fremantle will be there as well.
Two WA teams will be interested in that race for sure.
They lost Devon Smith, who else are going around the league? Will Hoskin Elliott.
Adams even.
Tom Boyd. Yeah, Adams, Treloar.
All of those players, though, apart from Boyd, I think they were happy to let go of and they got pretty good deals out of. I think the players they have now in the midfield, they're going to be desperate to hang on to those guys. If those guys want to leave, they're going to have to fight a bit for them. And personally, I'd actually like to see the players stay. It's never good to see the mass exodus from a football club because you can see how it ruins the football club. So I'd like to see, apart from obviously one of them coming to Fremantle, I'd like to see them stay at GWS personally.
I think Taranto's contract's up in a couple of years as well.
I agree with what you're saying in that the players they've lost they haven't been too concerned about. I guess what I'm saying is, are they starting to develop a culture where people are leaving, when they're out of contract? Look at Gold Coast, pretty much they do their 2 to 4 years there, or some cases they do 8 years there as Tom Lynch, and it's almost a given that players leave. I think we said that Tom Lynch got applause from his teammates when he announced he was leaving, if that was true. That it's not taboo there.
I also heard there was the leadership group was very critical of him.
Yeah, I heard May had a big go at people applauding O'Meara after he made a speech about... it was O'Meara.
Maybe I'm crossing my wires.
Same
club though.
Supposedly, O'Meara made a speech about how he was going to leave and got applauded by the players, and then Stephen May had a bit of a go at everyone. But I mean, if Stephen May's going to turn around and leave, then
Bit hypocritical.
Yeah.
And by the way, he's a very good player. I think he'd be a good pickup for a club. He's a bloody unit.
I think the Suns would be so stupid to let him go. He is contracted.
Yeah.
Who else are they losing? Aaron Hall's gone.
Yeah.
Tom Lynch is gone.
Scrimshaw.
Scrimshaw's just about gone.
Maybe Jack Martin.
Jack Martin's been talked about as leaving potentially.
Barlow.
They're
Axed.
heavily denying it though.
Yeah.
Gold Coast come out heavy
Okay.
saying they don't have a bar of Jack Martin going anywhere.
Okay.
Barlow
yeah.
axed.
Yeah, Barlow acts. Obviously, Rosa retired. Like that's a lot of like mature talent with Rosa gone. Why would they leave? Why would they let Stephen May walk out the door? Surely that's not going to happen. For me, I don't buy the whole you can get more for him this year. Like, what are they going to do with another high draft pick?
Lose it.
Yeah, trade it for a pleb.
That's why I was talking about. I think it's important. I think they'll go for both King brothers. A friend actually mentioned this to me. This isn't
draft.
my material, but yeah, I think that's a good move for them because if they get two brothers, I think it's highly unlikely both those brothers would make a trade request to go back to Melbourne at the same time.
They could though. They could still live together in Melbourne,
Yeah,
play
they
for
could.
different teams, and get
Yeah.
out of the shitstorm if it's Gold Coast.
They could.
Yeah, I could totally see that happening. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's. I hate to be pessimistic, but I just feel like it's just doomed to fail Gold Coast, and I can't see a way of it to get better without the AFL being just super unjust and just setting up some sort of unfair,
Yeah.
academy or priority.
Well, they do already have
thing for
those.
them.
They
Yeah,
literally have both of
exactly.
those things. Sorry.
I genuinely think Tassie because it's a 20-minute. It's like a half-hour flight from Melbourne.
Yeah.
So a lot of these kids are a lot closer to home, their families and stuff. I think Tassie's viable. If it doesn't work out in a few years, I think they should seriously look at Tassie.
I mean, would that fix the on-field issues? I think their issues are very on-field.
It'd
to be
help.
honest.
It'd help with the on-field because it'd help them retain players. Because
I see.
homesickness isn't a factor. Is what I'm saying. I'm saying they're right next to Melbourne. Like,
So you talk about uprooting the club to Tasmania?
yeah, if
I guess-
not immediately. I'm saying
Yeah.
if this trend continues for the next 4 or 5 years, they should
I'd,
seriously consider it.
I would laugh at Lachie Weller if that happened, but
Well, he is a Tasmanian too, though.
That
isn't
is
he?
true. That is-
Yeah.
that is
I think
true.
he moved because he loved the Suns rather
Yeah.
than to be home. But
Because his parents moved up there when Mav got drafted by
you
them,
couldn't
wasn't
write
it?
that, could you? Someone moving because they love the Suns. It sounds like fan fiction.
I was thinking about this if Gaff goes. Yeah, if Gaff goes to North Melbourne, I had like visions of them getting relocated to Hobart.
Who did Gaff
come from?
support?
Melbourne.
Melbourne. Eh?
Yeah, ran into his auntie night before the grand final. Actually, day before the grand final. That sounded weird. Yeah, funny enough, they're big Melbourne fans.
Did you get the inside track, mate?
No, she didn't even know.
Did you speak to her or just run into her?
Yeah, I just ran into her really hard. Yeah, she's still in hospital.
I recognise her. I know all this family.
What about this priority pick situation with the Blues and the Suns? Another good segue. Where they're not offering priority picks anymore. It seems like priority picks are dead. What they're doing now is they're allowing a little mini draft where the Blues can take 2 mature age players from the state leagues, and Gold Coast can take 3 this year.
I
apparently.
like it personally.
Yeah?
I like that idea. I think it's fair on the other clubs. Well,
I agree with that.
it's more fair than giving them pick 1 in the draft.
Sure, I agree.
And I think it's good for the state leagues as well. It's going to probably ensure a few more mature age state league players that deserve to play AFL can play AFL.
Isn't that bad for the state leagues? I think the state boss.
Well, it's good for
All
the
the
players.
state leagues are
players.
kicking
It's good
up.
for the players.
Every state league person's kicking up shit.
I think the one that's really unfair for the state leagues is the mid-season rookie draft because that's just going to kill a club if a player, let's say Tim Kelly's going amazing, and then he just has to leave the club in July because he gets picked up by an AFL club.
When he was at South Fremantle.
Exactly.
You mean? Yeah.
No, I don't think that's fair on the state leagues. I can understand why they would pick up a fuss.
I
do
don't
you
think
think
that's going to be too impactful though, because that only applies if there's retirements or long-term injuries. Because you
But
specifically
there's long-term injuries at club.
Yeah.
Every single club, every single year. You could say, this rookie, Max Duffy, has a long-term injury. Let's go take the best player out of this VFL side.
That's
I
true.
still sort of.
Do you think these mature age players are actually going to help the clubs that much, though.
Yeah, I do personally. I don't think there's much of a gap between the best state league players and the worst AFL listed players at all.
Sure, but is adding some of the worst AFL listed players to the Gold Coast going to help them?
Yeah, I think it would.
I'm not too sure. The players that were talked about, well, the ones that I'm aware of, there's going to be way more because I'm not very across the VFL and stuff. Mitch Grigg won the McGarry medal in the SANFL. He's one of the best mature age players going around. Shane McAdam has talked about, another SANFL small forward. At WA, you got Marlon Pickett, Jai Bolton won the Sandover, and Josh DeLuca, 5-time premiership player in the Waffle when he's only at 22 or something like that. I personally am just sceptical any of these guys are going to come in. Like, I think Tim Kelly's more like an absolute aberration where he's just an AFL level talent that has been hiding. You know what I mean? I think he's just that's a bit of or an anomaly is the word I'm looking for.
I think there's lots of those players though. Personally, I think a lot of players, if you give them a chance, will.
I think possibly over a few years. I don't think it's going to help them. I think Gold Coast have an aversion to playing like mature age players anyway. Like, look at Barlow, Lions, like those guys got dropped on the regular in the Gold Coast.
Barlow had mid-40 touches per game.
But there's a difference. He's 32, not 26.
I suppose. I mean, I don't know. I think from a talent perspective.
For me, I think I think Carlton are that bad at the moment. If they halfway through the season picked up Mitch Grigg and Jai Bolton, I think their midfield would get better from that. I think that's how bad their midfield is right now.
I'd like to see Carlton.
I hate to say it.
Fair enough.
I'd like to see Carlton give Barlow a crack.
What's that, sorry?
I'd like to see Carlton give Barlow a crack.
Would you give Barlow your crack?
Oh, mate. Absolutely not. I don't know how to play respond to that. Barlow trophy.
Yeah, that was it was kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah. When I was making a genuine point, mate.
Barlow, definitely underappreciated at the Gold Coast. He's one player that has been a bit hard done by, but
I think
the one game he did play, he got 35 at AFL level.
Speaking of which, I heard Goddard was meeting with Geelong this week. I think that wouldn't be a bad pickup for them, just if they can get him for $400K on a 1-year contract.
They seem pretty desperate just to like hold on to their ladder position, don't they? They don't really. They have played a lot of youth lately, but I mean, it just.
I think they're in an awkward position where they can't win a premiership, but
aren't shit enough to get good picks.
Exactly.
I mean, does Goddard really strike you as a great leader? I think he was cut from Essendon for the exact opposite reason.
Yeah,
I think he's a bad leader.
Criticised a lot. I think he's very prone to just not handling his emotions and just going nuts at a player.
Yeah. I guess they get a possibly.
But he's got quality.
Yeah, and they're losing Kelly, so in Dowhouse and. It sounds like Duncan's not going anywhere. That sounded a bit like a fake news, but yeah. All right, boys, really quickly. One other team we haven't really talked about that is a massive player this off-season is North Melbourne.
Yeah.
Potentially Gaff. The news hasn't been announced on Gaff. I think he's going to go. They're going to get Pollock for sure. Aaron Hall, I think they already interviewed him and had...
Hall's elected them.
Yeah, okay. I think they actually put a graphic up saying, like, former Suns midfielder.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a bit awkward. And it was like a North Melbourne interview, I'm pretty sure. So,
Aaron Hall's chosen North Melbourne.
Yes. How much is that going to propel them next year, getting those midfielders, hypothetically?
I think it helps them a lot because they've already got good paces there. I think we've had this conversation before, like stick Gaff and Pollock on the wings. They've got Cunnington, Zeeble, Higgins. Goldstein's still a very viable ruckman in this league. A lot of good young guys. Ben Brown as a forward.
They got a lot of inside mid talent, or at least capable inside mid. So they probably do like the polish. So Gaff and Pollock really do help. And Hall, really. I wonder how they're going to try and go for Kelly next year.
I think they'll be top 8, but not. I don't think they're a top 4 side, even with those ins.
Yeah.
Hall and Pollock for me, they're very up and down. Not very consistent players. Gaff, he's consistent.
Yeah.
They haven't actually got Kelly yet, so we can't actually rate their team with Kelly in the side.
Sure.
So
I guess I meant like how the hell are they going to fit him?
I still don't think personally a team with Cunnington, Higgins, Gaff, Polek, Hall is amazing. Personally, I think it's good. I think it's a good list, solid list.
It sounds better than Hawthorn's midfield, I'd say, and Hawthorn finished 4.
I think though Mitchell and O'Meara are both better than any of those.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'd take Cunnington or Higgins over O'Meara.
Would you?
Yeah, I would too. I don't really think O'Meara's in that.
No, I think O'Meara.
If O'Meara can get healthy and
O'Meara played most of the year this year. I think he's got a very, very big year in front of him personally.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue, but at the present, I'd probably go Higgins
that's fair.
or Cunnington.
I can see that.
Sure.
But I can see O'Meara having the potential to be better. To your point, I do give you that.
And I mean, Tom Mitchell, you can't.
Yeah, he won the Brownlow.
He's a definite. He's arguably the best mid in the comp, like right now in terms of form.
Yeah,
I suppose.
In form, not
in
talent.
form, yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
You can't deny
I think
that.
I think it was a low bar this year. Not to sound too disrespectful, but
No, he did get lucky.
was.
Five got suspended and injured.
It was, but you can't say that. You can't say like Dangerfield, Fife, Martin are in better form than Mitchell.
Sure.
And
Well, Fife was.
Fife was.
Fife
yeah,
would have had it if
that
he didn't
was-
get injured and suspended.
That was probably a good 3 months ago now.
Yeah, but it was injury. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And suspension. He got suspended first.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, boys. That I think we've come to the end of True Footy Podcast 22. It's going to be a very painful few weeks as the speculation draws out. I'm pretty sure we still won't know what's going on with Andrew Gaff 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Still be making his decision
Well,
at
after
Christmas.
the trade period.
Yeah.
Mate, I wouldn't be surprised at this rate. But
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely dragged out.
I guess I think we'll be able to come together after the trade period and before the draft, and we'll definitely sort out and be able to recap for you guys all the big trades and give our opinions.
we've come full circle now. True Footy Podcast 1 was us wrapping last trade period. So, yeah, it'll be the anniversary podcast.
Before we leave, there's one more thing I want to get at, and I know Busher, you've saved up some rage.
You want me to go off on Wolsey, do
For a
you?
particular individual. Well, it's up to you.
Well, I can. I don't mind going off on Wolsey.
Okay. Give us what you got.
Gross.
But I don't know. I think it's just a bit ridiculous. Like, I'm a guy who loves ragging on the Eagles. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's just gone a bit overboard with it myself. I think it's a bit bloody ridiculous. Like,
He's got a real personal vendetta.
yeah.
Like, it started
even after year one, he's like, oh, the Eagles have to thank Victoria for some of their talent and all this stuff. That's bullshit.
And then he said
Straight
Eagles
up.
can't take a joke. The fans
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
take a joke.
He said the Eagles fans are gullible because they fell for his spoon prediction.
Yeah. It's like, you're in
How
the,
bad is
it's
that?
like-
Yeah, the guy has like absolutely no integrity. He was like in the when the Eagles beat Sydney in the 06 grand final. I think it was round one the following year after all the drug saga, and we played Sydney again in round one. And I think he described it as a battle of good versus evil. And he said the Eagles flew him to Perth after that to try and clear the air, saying why are you talking so much shit about us? They flew him to Perth, and he said. Oh, I feared for my life. The Eagles were involved with some of the most dangerous men in Australia, and I thought they were going to neck me or kill me. Neck me?
Hang him.
Yeah. Well,
like, if
Who
you're in the
knows?
media and in a position where people listen to you, you shouldn't be carried on like that.
I think every club seems to have one pundit that just really rags on them. Frio's is we've got two, Brad Hardy and Terry Wallace. Terry Wallace during the week described us as the basket case club.
that was
He
his
did have
special.
some points, to be fair, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I couldn't
I-
argue with him.
Terry Wallace's specialty is basket case club. Isn't it?
Personally, I don't really like Victorian analysts.
Analysts,
Just
analysts.
who sit on the other side of the country taking punts at WA clubs, and vice versa. I don't like it if Duffield from the west just will take an absolute.
It's just usually the research is
Opportunity
so on the surface, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So,
They're using second-hand sources, stuff they've read, rather than listening to people. And
not
talking
like
to
what we
people.
do.
Yeah,
We're third-hand, pretty much.
yeah.
We listen to those guys and then come up with a podcast.
We're full of integrity here.
That's
But at the
it.
same time, we don't have access to those sources like these people do.
Yeah, so we just make it up.
They do
we
call
don't
you.
make it up.
No, we don't.
They do call
Joking.
you the mini Wayne Carey. I've heard you referred to.
Mate, I did have a pocket named after me at one stage. That was
Did
because
you?
of the one fluke goal I've ever kicked in my
really?
life, but that's beside the point.
The
What was
Daniel
the
Busher
pocket
wing.
called?
Pardon?
What was it called? The Busher
Busher pocket, mate.
Busher pocket.
Yeah, mate. It was a real tight angle. It was a real nice goal, but it was a fluke. I'll admit it. It was a fluke.
Nah, mate, it was all skill.
Should have just.
It was a lefty, so it was a nice little angle for me.
A dom sheet angle.
Yeah, mate. It pretty much was the dom sheet angle, really. Actually, it was even tighter.
And it was a bigger game too.
Are we still talking about the goal?
Yeah.
Cool.
It was a bigger game too.
Bigger game too. Yeah.
Bigger moment.
Yeah,
North
mate.
Fremantle.
Third Colts, North Fremantle.
Who are North Fremantle's rivals?
CBC. Probably a big
of course,
one. Yeah.
Of course, that was a dumb question.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Before we keep talking out our ass, I think we'll sign
wrap it
off.
up. Yeah, cool.
So thanks to
Wallsie's a
everyone.
flog.
Thanks to everyone for listening into this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys.
Absolutely. We're still trying to go for 1,000 subscribers before the end of the season or before the end of the draft. So,
Or the year.
yeah, whatever.
When have we given ourselves to?
I have no idea. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean anything. Well, 1,000 subs would be great. So if you can get your mates to subscribe, make a few fake accounts and hit subscribe, you'd be doing us
And
a favour.
send in any questions you have.
truefootypodcast@gmail.com or just comment on the video.
I think we should start a phone. If we ever went live, I think we should get phone people.
I'm never letting you on a live show, Daniel Busher.
Yeah,
You haven't had to edit out much of it.
No, to be
I've been well behaved.
Yeah, I think we've all had our equal edits. To
You've
be
been a
honest.
good
Yeah.
boy lately.
Yeah, it's a pleasant change of pace.
All right, guys. See ya.
See ya.
Funny as in that last 20-minute one, I dropped guts, but I don't think anyone realised. It made a little noise.